Humpty Dumpty fell off his wall and used all of his own soldiers to put himself back together again. Meet Godrick the Grafted, the first shard bearer that you'll be facing in your journey through the lands between. I'm Horizon Shield, and let's make this easy. As always, I'm doing this fight without summons or spirits, without blocks or parries. If you choose to use them, that's alright. The credits roll the same way for both of us at the end of the game. It doesn't make you a worse player, just means you have more options in your kit. And for reference, I'm doing this fight at level 27 because I'm trying to be a little bit underleveled to draw out the fight a little bit longer to show more of his moveset. I'm fighting with a +2 scythe because I think it looks cool. No other reason. Fight with whatever you want to. Let's go ahead and beat the boss, shall we? So what can Godrick actually do? Well, he has two phases, separated with a cutscene when he hits 60% health. He gets new moves after the transition, and we'll go over those after a bit, but we will start with the first phase and how to dodge everything. To kick things off, Godrick has an axe dragging charge that can be used to close the gap with the player. Dropping his axe down behind him, he charges directly at the player. He will hold the charge for the same amount of time, regardless of the distance. What this means is that even if he reaches you, he will continue charging in place before he swings. You know he's about to swing when he starts to lean a little bit to the side. It is subtle, but it's there. Alternatively, you can just back away from the charge to avoid the swing. Either one works. One of the most common attacks is a simple axe swing. The unique part is that he holds the swing for several seconds or until the player is in range. The telegraph is literally just him holding his axe over his left shoulder for several seconds. He swings both his axe and his arm. If the player stays in range, he continues this attack with a backswing the other way. The third attack can either be an overhead slam with his arm or an axe thrust. This depends on how far the player is from him at the start of the third attack. The easiest way to dodge it is to just walk backwards or roll. If he gets to the axe thrust, just roll sideways. The simple axe thrust can be a separate attack as well. He draws the axe back slightly as if he's going to stab you with the blunt end of it, and then he simply thrusts it forward. He does have a little bit of range with this attack because he jumps forward as he does it. Don't get caught off guard by the distance it can cover. Just roll to the side if you have to. Thankfully, the attack is pretty straightforward, and to dodge, you just need to roll to one of the sides. Another one of his favorite attacks is the whirlwind attack. With a very short telegraph, he swings his axe around his head twice and then stomps his foot. The first two swings generate a relatively small circle of wind around him. The stomp creates a slightly larger area of damage. To dodge the attack, just roll backwards when he starts it. He doesn't chase until the follow-up, so you don't need to worry about it. This attack will always combo with one of two attacks. The first is the air toss. Godrick stays stationary while dragging his axe along the ground and throwing a spiral of air towards the player. He does this twice, once from his right, once from his left. To dodge, I recommend rolling to the side he is throwing from. You can also roll straight through it if you so choose, but the timing can be a little bit finicky either way. The second combo is a rolling leap. As soon as he's finished with the whirlwind, he rolls and then leaps. He pauses in the air for a moment and falls, doing area damage. To dodge, just roll towards him as he falls, or you can also just walk to the side as this attack is fairly slow. The roll itself doesn't hurt you, so you can get pretty close to him before he jumps and prepare to start attacking. Godrick can also use the roll as an entirely separate attack. The roll itself doesn't do damage just as before. However, if you are too close to him as he comes out of the roll, he can slam his arm down to hurt you if you're too close. He will always follow up with an attack, but it does vary from roll to roll, so just kind of watch out. To dodge most everything that he can come out of the roll with, just roll backwards out of range. It's not that big of a deal. Next up we have a leap. It's slightly different from the leap in the whirlwind, but it's a little bit similar. It's just a single jump into the air where he holds the axe with both hands horizontally in front of him. He falls with an area of damage, kind of like the leap from before, but just a little bit different. This attack is fairly short, the tracking on it isn't great, so for the most part, you can just walk away when you see it start to happen. But I always suggest rolling to make sure you don't get accidentally hit. Next up is Godrick's simple chop attack. This attack is faster than his other moves. He just brings his axe back, similar to the thrust, and chops it down in front of him twice. This attack doesn't have a very long range, but it is dangerous because of the fast telegraph. Due to the short range, you can just roll backwards to dodge it fairly easily. Next is the vertical slam. Godrick winds his axe up and brings it vertical, shocking, and then slams it down in front of him. This attack has a fairly unique telegraph and is slow, but it does have a longer reach than some of his other attacks. Dodge by just rolling backwards to get a bit of distance, or to the sides if you're too close. There's a variation of this that comes out of the roll, but it's pretty much the same, but it does have a lot more reach as he lunges forward with it. Godrick also has a jump slash that he does. He hops towards you and slashes with an axe. There's no prior telegraph other than him jumping directly at you and then swinging his axe. It is a decently fast attack, but all you need to do to dodge it is just roll as he starts to fall, and it should get you out of range or through the attack just fine. One of the last attacks in the first phase is the crazy swings. He preps his axe over his right shoulder as if he's going to swing a baseball bat, and then he does a combo of 5 swings. These swings are always in the same order no matter what. The easiest way to dodge this, if you have enough room, is to just run away from it. Even if you're directly next to him starting out the attack, you can make it far enough away. But if you are looking to do damage, the 4th attack will kick up a cloud of dust. As that dust starts to dissipate, you can actually time the 5th attack dodge by rolling towards him during it. That lines you up for some pretty good damage. To round out the first phase, one of his signature moves is his Earthquake attack. He turns his axe upside down and then slams it into the ground. It causes a wave of damage around him. In the first phase, he does 2 separate slams. The second slam will create a slightly larger circle of damage. So to dodge, just run away. Simple as that. You can jump over the circles of damage, but I don't recommend it. The timing's just weird, but it is possible. The second phase will start after he's taken damage from your weapon while under 60% health. This will trigger a 6 or 7 second window where you can freely damage him before the cutscene starts. Be careful not to stand in front of him as he chops his arm off, as it can hurt you if you're too close. Found that one out by accident. Now you don't have to check yourself. You're welcome. When the cutscene ends, it will always start the second phase with the same Flame Sweep attack coming from Godrick's new arm. This same Flame Sweep attack is used multiple times in the second phase. Godrick does a quick telegraph of bringing his new dragon arm to his side and then starts shooting flames across the arena. While the flames don't go all the way across the arena, they do go a significant distance, so try not to back yourself into a wall, otherwise you might get hit because of it. Depending on your distance at the start of this attack, you have 3 options. The first is to run behind the dragon arm spitting fire to deal damage. The alternative is to run backwards to get some distance. The third and final option is to roll through the flames. This can be a bit tricky to roll through though, but know that the flames themselves are basically balls of fire, so you can roll into it just fine for the most part to get through it. The second move, involving the dragon head, Godrick slams the head into the ground and turns in a full circle before lobbing projectiles into the air that rain down at the player's location. This attack can be tricky because of the speed that he slams the dragon heads down at if you're too close, and because of the randomness of the projectiles. To avoid the initial slam and turn, try not to stick too close to him after you finish your attacks and don't overcommit to anything. Then, to avoid the projectiles, try to run to the sides as soon as possible as soon as you see him starting the attack. The alternative is to run backwards out of range of the attack entirely, which may be better depending on how far back you are when you start to see the attack. Standing underneath the lobs of projectiles is not recommended. They're pretty random and difficult to dodge. One of Godrick's favorite attacks, if the player is too close, is the Walking Flame attack, telegraphed by him moving his dragon arm in a circle and then angling it downward. He shoots flames forwards from the direction that he is facing. He can move as he does this attack, and he can turn slightly as well. These flames don't extend as far as the sweep, but they do go a bit of distance. There are 2 options. You can either run directly away from the attack if you aren't close enough, or you can try to run behind him to do some damage. Note that the flames can go backwards. It's a little bit random, but they are possible to go behind him if you're trying to attack him from behind. Be careful. The grab of the fight comes from his dragon arm. The telegraph from this attack is a dragon's roar audio cue, as well as him moving his dragon arm out and back to the side. He swipes forward in a close area. If he catches you, it locks you into an animation. To dodge, just roll backwards. The attack does not have a lot of range and honestly doesn't do much damage either. The hardest part of the attack was getting enough footage to put it in this video. Along with his brand new moves, he also changes some of his old attacks slightly. Don't worry, the ways to dodge are the same, but I'm going to show you the variations really quick. The axe swing from before gets a little bit of range with the new dragon arm. If you stick close enough to see all of the following attacks, there is a chance of him using a flame attack at the end. It's slightly different from the ones we've seen before. This particular flame attack is similar to the Walking Flame but has a very short distance and doesn't follow the player like the other attack does. It's mostly a deterrent for anybody sticking too close to him. The easiest way to avoid this is to keep your distance and not even see the follow-ups at all. For the whirlwind attack, it's now on fire. Crazy change, right? Well, shockingly, nothing changes. The effects are just a nice orange color now. Dodge the exact same way as before, just roll away or through the attacks. The only other move that really changes is his Earthquake attack. It now has a third slam attached to it. You know, 50% more attacks means it's better, right? It's the exact same telegraph as before. The first two come a bit faster, and it does have a slightly wider range. But it's the exact same as before. You dodge, just run away. There's no need to try to mess with it. Just get some distance. If the worst happens and we get hit, when can we heal? Well, the fight baits you into swinging a lot more than you should, because Godrick's swings are fairly slow. That means that at some point you'll probably get hit. That's okay though. This fight is very generous with the amount of time that it gives to heal. He doesn't have any attacks that outright punish the player for trying to heal like Margit's dagger throw does. This means you can wait for one of his attacks, such as any of the slow axe slashes, and show him absolutely zero respect and heal 3 feet in front of him. Or you can do the smart thing, walk a little bit further away, but meh. Just be careful of his few attacks that do have the range, such as the charging slash or the jump slash. They can catch you off guard if you're trying to be too cocky. Alrighty, so how do we bring this all together to finish this fight? Well, this fight's actually fairly simple. If you're trying to play it safe and not take any damage, for the vast majority of the attacks, you're just going to hit him once and walk away. I realized pretty quickly that his attacks may seem safe for the most part, but you can actually be punished pretty badly with his whirlwind attack. And because he resets his move after every attack, he can actually just go straight into the whirlwind, and it can actually screw you over pretty hard. There are a couple moves where you can get 2 attacks off if he doesn't follow up with a right move, and it's a little bit of luck sometimes, but it does work pretty consistently. Take advantage of your flask and actually use that to heal if you get greedy. Don't worry, the healing's pretty easy in this fight. There aren't many attacks in his kit that can't be punished with an attack or 2. You can feel pretty confident with just hitting him after nearly every attack, actually. And the good news is, with the Scythe, I'm actually doing bleed damage as well. So you'll see that proc here in a second. You'll also notice that the Scythe ends up doing stagger damage. That is actually pretty nice, because it usually triggers about the start of the second phase. It's pretty consistent. Depending on how fast you're actually doing damage to him, it can happen more than once in the fight. The same with the bleed proc, but that's entirely up to you. If there's any of the attacks you aren't feel comfortable with, just walk away from him, let him tire himself out, walk up and punch him in the face. Simple as that. It's strange to me that the fight before this was actually tougher than Godrick, but you still have to be more cautious with Godrick because he only offers about 1 hit every single time. And do note that I'm using a +2 Scythe. At this point in the game, you can get up to +4, and you can be a significantly higher level. That's all up to you when you want to do the fight. But this fight will teach you patience. That is one thing for certain, just like any other Elden Ring boss. Notice after he goes under 60% health, he is very vulnerable. Try to go ahead and waste all your stamina, but don't get too cocky, because the stamina that you end the first phase at, you actually start the second phase with. And since the way you start the second phase is by running directly towards him, be warned that you can actually run out of stamina and not make it to him in time. Thankfully, I was able to speed up the second phase quite a bit because I was able to stagger him here. It's very helpful because of the type of weapon I have. However, I've also done this with a couple of weapons that have not staggered him entirely on purpose, just for the fact of it does take time, but it's entirely possible from what I've said in this video. His second phase doesn't change a whole lot, but it does bring in the new fire moves. The biggest part that I can say is don't get yourself trapped in a corner. That's just not fun for anybody. So try to stay calm, watch out for the flames. If you need to, you can roll through them, at least for the walking flame attack if you're far enough away. or even the flame sweep attack if you're trying to get close to him and you can't quite make it. But for most of his attacks, it is pretty much the same. Even if you do get hit, most of his attacks don't punish you for rolling extra. But in the end, all it takes is a little bit of time, and you'll finish the fight just fine. So after he falls, congratulations on conquering the castle. Now I think you're ready to take on the rest of what the Lands Between have to offer. If this was helpful, feel free to like and subscribe to see me break down the rest of the bosses in Elden Ring. Until then, happy hunting.